The medicine bottle crashed against the marble floor. "I trusted you with everything." His voice wasn't loud. That made it worse. The nanny stood frozen in the hallway, her bag already packed, security waiting by the door. The little girl, 8 years old, pale, trembling, clutched the railing at the top of the stairs. "Daddy, please. Go to your room, Isla." The nanny's hands shook. She didn't defend herself, didn't beg. She just looked at the man who had once called her family and saw a stranger. But as she turned toward the door, the child's voice cut through the silence. 7 words. 7 words that would destroy him. Dominic Hayes didn't believe in luck. He believed in control. 3 years ago, when his wife died during childbirth complications with their second child, a son who never took his first breath, Dominic learned that control was all he had left. Control over his company. Control over his grief. Control over the carefully constructed life he built for his daughter, Isla. Rachel Bennett became part of that control. She arrived on a Tuesday morning, recommended by an agency specializing in trauma-informed childcare. Isla was 5 then, silent, withdrawn, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had belonged to her mother. The first 3 nannies lasted 2 weeks each. Isla wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak, wouldn't sleep unless Dominic sat outside her door. Rachel was different. She didn't try to force smiles or replace what was lost. She just sat on the floor of Isla's room, reading quietly, waiting. On the 3rd day, Isla crawled into her lap. On the 7th day, she asked Rachel to braid her hair like Mommy used to. Dominic watched from the doorway and felt something crack inside his chest. For 3 years, Rachel was the constant. She learned Isla's allergies, severe reactions to tree nuts, shellfish, certain medications. She monitored every meal, every label, every prescription refill. She knew Isla feared thunderstorms but loved rain. She knew Isla hummed her mother's favorite song when she was nervous. She knew Isla in ways Dominic had forgotten how to. And then 6 weeks ago, Isla got sick. It started small: headaches, fatigue, nausea after dinner. The family physician ran tests. Everything came back normal, but Isla kept getting worse. She missed school, lost weight, started having nightmares about hospitals. Dominic brought in specialists. They found nothing. His sister, Vivian, moved into the guest house to help. Vivian was a nurse, practical and decisive, everything Dominic needed during the chaos. She monitored Isla's symptoms, adjusted her routines, suggested new doctors. "Maybe it's stress," Vivian said one evening standing in Dominic's office. "Children internalize trauma differently. Isla's attachment to Rachel might be unhealthy." Dominic looked up from his desk. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that child depends on an employee more than her own family." Vivian's voice was careful, clinical. "It's not natural, Dom. You've given Rachel too much access, too much influence." He didn't respond, but the seed was planted. 2 weeks later, Vivian found the evidence. She came to his office at midnight, pale and shaking, holding a Ziploc bag like it contained poison. "I found this in Rachel's bathroom," she whispered, "hidden behind the cleaning supplies." Inside the bag, a bottle of Isla's allergy medication, but the tablets looked wrong, crushed edges, different colors mixed together. "Dom, I think," Vivian's voice cracked, "I think she's been tampering with Isla's medicine." The world tilted. "That's impossible." "I went through her room. Look." Vivian pulled out her phone, showing photos, pharmacy receipts with Rachel's name, purchasing medications not prescribed to Isla. A small bag of white powder hidden in a drawer, later tested as a compound that could trigger allergic reactions. Why would she? "I don't know." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "Maybe she wanted Isla dependent on her. Maybe she's sick. But Dom, if you don't act now, if something happens to that child." Dominic called his head of security, then his lawyer. By dawn, every door in the house had a lock Rachel couldn't open. He confronted her in the hallway at 7 a.m., Isla still sleeping upstairs. "I need you to explain this." Rachel stared at the evidence, the bottles, the receipts, the powder. Her face went white, but she didn't speak. "You've been poisoning my daughter." "No," her voice was barely a whisper. "Then explain the medication. Explain the receipts." I can't." That was the moment Dominic stopped seeing her as Rachel. She became a threat, a stranger who had infiltrated his home and hurt his child. "You have 1 hour to pack. Security will escort you out. If you contact Isla, if you come near this property, I will have you arrested. Do you understand?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She turned toward the stairs. That's when Isla appeared. If you've ever felt the weight of a broken trust, if you've ever doubted someone you thought you knew, you're not alone. Welcome to Nanny Grace Stories, where we explore the complicated truths about loyalty, betrayal, and the courage it takes to see clearly when everything feels uncertain. These stories are for anyone who's ever questioned their own judgment, for anyone who's realized too late that the truth was hiding in plain sight. If that resonates with you, if you want more stories that make you think, feel, and see the world differently, subscribe now. You belong here. Now let's return to Dominic and the sentence that would change everything. Isla stood at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, her rabbit clutched to her chest, eyes wide and swollen from crying. "Daddy, please don't make Rachel leave." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Go back to bed, sweetheart. She didn't do anything wrong." "Isla." "She didn't," the little girl's voice cracked. "Why won't you listen to me?" Rachel moved toward the stairs, one hand reaching up. "Isla, baby, it's okay." "Don't," Dominic stepped between them, his body a wall. "Don't speak to my daughter." Rachel's hand dropped. She looked at Isla one last time, memorizing her face maybe, and then turned toward the door. Security grabbed her bag. And Isla screamed. Not words, just a raw, guttural sound that shattered the silence like glass. She collapsed on the stairs, sobbing so violently her small body convulsed. Vivian rushed up to hold her. "Sweetheart, it's all right, Auntie's here." "No," Isla shoved her away. "I don't want you, I want Rachel." Dominic felt something inside him tear, but he forced his voice steady. "Rachel isn't safe, Isla. She hurt you." "She didn't. She made you sick." "She didn't. She saved me." The words hung in the air. Dominic froze. What? But Isla was hyperventilating now, beyond speech. Vivian scooped her up, carrying her toward her bedroom. "She's in shock, Dom. Let me handle this." The door closed. Rachel was already in the car. Dominic stood alone in the hallway, Isla's words echoing in his skull. "She saved me." For 2 weeks, Isla refused to eat. Not dramatically, not with tantrums, she just stopped, picked at her food, pushed plates away. Her eyes were hollow, her skin gray. The nightmares worsened. She woke up screaming for Rachel, clawing at her sheets, begging for someone who was gone. Dominic hired a new nanny. Isla locked herself in her room. He brought in a child psychologist. Isla wouldn't speak. Vivian suggested medication for anxiety. Isla threw the pills across the room. "She'll adjust," Vivian assured him, sitting in his office with a glass of wine. "Children are resilient, she just needs time." But Dominic couldn't stop thinking about what Isla had said. "She saved me." He pulled the security footage from the past 6 months, watching every interaction between Rachel and Isla, looking for proof of manipulation, grooming, psychological control. What he found was something else entirely. Rachel brushing Isla's hair before school, talking softly about the day ahead. Rachel catching Isla when she tripped on the stairs, laughing together afterward. Rachel sitting beside Isla's bed during a nightmare, singing the lullaby Dominic's wife used to sing. And then, 3 months ago, something Dominic didn't remember. Isla had an allergic reaction during dinner. Not severe, but enough to cause hives and difficulty breathing. Dominic was in Tokyo on business. Vivian was there, calm and clinical, checking Isla's vitals. "It's mild," Vivian said on the footage. "Her airways aren't closing. We should monitor her for 30 minutes before calling an ambulance. No need to panic her." But Rachel disagreed. "She needs a hospital now." "Rachel, I'm a nurse. I know what I'm." "I don't care. She's struggling to breathe. We're going." Rachel scooped Isla up and ran to the car, ignoring Vivian's protests. At the ER, they discovered Isla's reaction was escalating toward anaphylaxis. 10 more minutes, the doctor said, and her airway would have closed completely. Rachel's decision saved her life. Dominic replayed the footage 3 times, his hands shaking. Why would someone who saved Isla's life then try to poison her? It didn't make sense. Unless... He pulled the evidence again, the tampered medication, the receipts, the powder. He looked at the timestamps on Vivian's photos, the locations, the details he'd been too angry to question. The pharmacy receipts were real, but they were for over-the-counter supplements Rachel bought for herself. Magnesium, vitamin D, nothing dangerous, nothing related to Isla. The tampered medication, Dominic had it retested by an independent lab. The results came back clean. The tablets looked different because they were a generic brand, not the name brand version. Completely safe. The white powder in Rachel's drawer. Protein powder, for the smoothies she made every morning. Every piece of evidence had an innocent explanation, which meant someone had lied. Dominic's blood went cold. He called his head of security. "I need you to audit every entry into Rachel Bennett's living quarters over the past 2 months. Every person, every timestamp." The results arrived the next morning. Vivian had accessed Rachel's space 17 times when Rachel wasn't home, far more than any other staff member, including the day before Dominic confronted Rachel, when Vivian claimed to find the evidence. Dominic sat in his office, the pieces falling into place. Vivian had been staging Isla's relapses, tampering with her food maybe, creating symptoms, making Rachel look guilty. Why? And then he remembered. 6 months ago, Vivian's husband filed for divorce. She lost custody of her own children, 2 boys Dominic barely saw anymore. She moved into the guest house, insisting she wanted to help with Isla. She wanted a daughter. And the only way to get Isla was to remove Rachel. Dominic stood up, his legs unsteady, and walked to Isla's room. She was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. "Isla, sweetheart, I need you to tell me what you meant when you said Rachel saved you." Isla didn't look at him. "You don't believe me." "I do now, please." Slowly the little girl turned. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. "The night I got sick and couldn't breathe, Aunt Vivian said we should wait. She said I was fine, but Rachel said I wasn't. And Rachel took you to the hospital." "She didn't listen to Aunt Vivian, she just took me." Isla's voice cracked. "If Rachel wanted to hurt me, Daddy, why would she save me?" The question hit him like a freight train. Why indeed? Dominic confronted Vivian that night. She denied everything at first, shocked, hurt, indignant. "How dare you accuse me of harming that child? I'm her aunt, I'm family." But when Dominic showed her the security logs, the retested evidence, the timeline of Isla's illnesses matching Vivian's visits, her face changed. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I just wanted to help raise her. She's my brother's child, my blood. That woman is a stranger. That woman loved Isla like her own." "Exactly," Vivian's voice rose, desperate. "She loved her too much. Isla called her name in her sleep, Dom, not yours, not mine, her name. I was trying to protect this family from..." From what? From someone who cared. From someone who was replacing us. The words echoed in the vast hallway. Dominic stared at his sister, the woman who had held him when his wife died, who had promised to help him rebuild, and saw a stranger. "Get out of my house." "Dom, you have until morning. If you're still here, I'm calling the police." Vivian left before dawn. She didn't say goodbye to Isla. Finding Rachel was harder. She'd gone back to her hometown, a small city 3 hours north. No forwarding address, no social media. Dominic hired an investigator, but it was Isla who found her. She'd kept one of Rachel's old pay stubs tucked inside her pillowcase. The address was printed at the top. They drove there on a Saturday morning, just Dominic and Isla, no security, no staff. The apartment building was modest, old brick with flower boxes in the windows. Rachel's unit was on the 3rd floor. Dominic knocked. When the door opened, Rachel's face went pale. She looked thinner, tired. Her eyes flicked from Dominic to Isla, and something in her expression crumbled. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said quickly, her hand on the doorframe. "I haven't contacted Isla, I wouldn't." "I know," Dominic's voice was rough. "I know you didn't do any of it." Rachel blinked. "What?" "The medication, the receipts, everything. It was my sister. She set you up and I believed her." He swallowed hard. "I didn't ask questions, I didn't listen to you, and I am so profoundly sorry." Tears welled in Rachel's eyes, but she shook her head. "It doesn't matter now." "It does, because Isla hasn't eaten a full meal in 2 weeks. She doesn't sleep, she barely speaks, and I don't know how to." "Rachel." Isla's small voice cut through the conversation. She was standing behind Dominic, her rabbit clutched tight, her eyes enormous. Rachel's composure shattered. She dropped to her knees and Isla ran to her, sobbing into her shoulder. Rachel wrapped her arms around the little girl, rocking her, whispering, "I'm here, baby, I'm here. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Dominic watched them, his throat tight. When Isla finally pulled back, her face blotchy and wet, she looked up at Rachel with devastating seriousness. "Are you coming home?" Rachel glanced at Dominic, uncertain. I don't know if your dad wants." "I do," Dominic's voice cracked. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to trust me again. But Isla needs you, and so do I." Rachel studied him for a long moment. Then she looked down at Isla, at the child who had fought for her when no one else would. "Okay," she whispered, "okay." Rachel moved back 3 days later. The house felt different, lighter somehow. Isla ate breakfast again. She laughed at Rachel's terrible jokes. She slept through the night. Dominic didn't hover the way he used to. He watched from a distance as Rachel braided Isla's hair, as they danced in the kitchen while cookies baked, as they sat together reading on the couch. One evening, he found Rachel alone in the hallway, folding laundry. "Thank you," he said quietly. Rachel looked up. "For what?" "For coming back, for giving us another chance." She set down the towel she'd been folding, her expression careful. "I didn't come back for you, Mr. Hayes." "I know. I came back for Isla because she needed me, and because," Rachel's voice softened, "because I needed her too." Dominic nodded. "I understand, but I want you to know I will never doubt you again. I will never let anyone hurt you the way I did. You have my word." Rachel held his gaze for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a beginning. 6 months passed. Isla thrived. She grew 2 inches, made friends at school, joined the soccer team. She still had nightmares sometimes, but Rachel was always there, patient, steady, unshakable. Dominic watched his daughter become whole again, and realized something he'd been too blind to see before. Family isn't just blood. Family is the people who show up, who fight for you, who save you when everyone else says to wait. Rachel was family. And he'd almost destroyed her because he chose fear over trust. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones we fail to see, until it's almost too late. Some wounds don't disappear just because someone says sorry. Think about that for a moment. If you were Rachel, would you have come back for that child? Or would the betrayal have been too deep to forgive? I'm reading every comment. If this story moved you, if it made you think about trust, loyalty, and the families we choose, then you belong here at Nanny Grace Stories. We share stories that challenge how we see the world and remind us that truth isn't always obvious, that people are complex, that forgiveness is possible, even when it feels impossible. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that values depth, honesty, and the courage to look closer. Because every story here is an invitation to see differently. This is Nanny Grace Stories, where every truth has a witness, and every witness has a story.